This conference will now be recorded.
Okay.
I'm muted. I'm muted. I knew that. So you want to get started? Um, I just want to thank everybody for coming out today, or not coming out, staying in today for Making Midwest Fest Season 6. Um, Today, speaking will be Matt Reno doing an intro to lino printmaking. Matt, you can take it away.
Okay, thanks, Charles, and thanks everybody for showing up. I'm not seeing anybody's video screen, but later, if when we're kind of working through everything, if you wanted to turn it on or unmute yourself anytime if you have questions, that's fine. So, quick introduction. Again, my name is Matt. I'm a graphic designer in Lexington, Kentucky, and then on the side, I like to do printmaking. It's kind of just it's another creative outlet, but just really different from graphic design. It doesn't have to be quite perfect. It's, a little more hands-on, so it's a nice change of pace, and so that's why I've really gotten into it. Um, Let me share my screen, and I'm gonna just go over some slides, give us kind of a quick introduction of what we're gonna do today. And I know that I had suggested some supplies to get when you sign up. So I don't know if everybody um, got the supplies. If you did, you're welcome to work along with us on your own design. Good job, Tina. Um, but if you don't have supplies, that's totally fine. You can just watch the video, um, and I'll share some notes afterwards, and you can do that on your own. But this is what I'm going to work on tonight. I did one ahead of time. Since it's Canada Day, I've got this little maple leaf character, just a simple thing so that, because lino cut can be really simple or really detailed, um, you can go in all different directions with this style. So today I chose a simple one that we can hopefully get done throughout the course of this workshop. So let me share my screen. There we go. Go to Lino Cut Printmaking. And so this is some samples of things I've done, again, just to show you how versatile this is. I do a lot of black and white landscapes. Some are fairly detailed, but you can also do really simple things. There are different ways to add color to it. We'll go over a couple of those later today. And you can really take lino cut in all different kinds of directions. Um, these are some artists I enjoy. And again, I'll share this PDF so you don't feel like you have to write everything down right now. But again, just to show you a range of styles, a range of ways of adding color. If you look at the one in the bottom right by Sarah Finger, she does amazing reduction lino cut. I'll show you a little bit of that tonight. That's a way of carving your block, putting some color on the paper, and then carving more, putting another color, and just layering and layering. Hers go like 6, 7 layers of color, which is makes some really beautiful work. Quick little thing about the history. Lino cut is first used sometime between 1905 and 1913 by a German expressionist artist group called Die Brücke, which translates into the bridge. Um, Linoleum, they were just looking for a modern, easier to work with alternative to woodcut. Woodcut is basically the same process, just different materials. We're using linoleum instead of wood, and the tools that use are different. They have to be a little more heavy duty when you're working with wood. Uh, these are some of the supplies you need to use, and there are lots of brands, but I put some of the more well recommended ones. First of all, there's the block. The one that I had suggested for tonight was Speedball Speedy Carve. It's actually more rubber than linoleum. I don't know exactly the materials used, but it's a lot easier to carve, especially good for beginners because it's safer too, since we're working with sharp objects. I tend to use one called Blick Battleship Gray. I'll show you that too when I turn it off, and that one's a little sturdier. The cutters that we'll be using tonight are again by Speedball. They're perfectly fine whether you're a beginner or experienced. That's really the only ones I use, but I'm gonna try experimenting with some others soon. Possibly Power Grip or Flex Cut. There's a lot of different kinds that you can choose. Ink, Speedball again has some really good ones. Um, when you're choosing inks, you're probably going to want to go with water soluble if cleanup is an issue because you can clean up the water soluble inks very easily in your bathroom sink or with baby wipes. If you're going to use oil-based inks, um, those might produce richer colors and last longer, but you have to worry about cleanup because you clean them up with vegetable oil or baby oil, which is not good for your household sinks. You have to use a heavier duty one. Maybe find a local printmaking studio that has them or something. Although, if you're going to print on fabric, such as t-shirts, I recommend Gamblin. If it's going to be black, Drive-By Black is a really good one. Um, that will stay on the fabric longer. The water soluble, obviously, it's water soluble. It's just going to wash right off. But Gamblin has some really good ones for t-shirts. We got a brayer. I'll show you what that is. It's for rolling the ink onto your block when you're ready to print. A baron is an object for hand pressing if you don't have a actual printing press to crank it through. But if you don't have a baron, a spoon will work just fine. Um, Paper, we have you can use anything. Arnhem 1618 is the one I use the most. It's good, sturdy printmaking paper, but there are all kinds. So as you get into it, you can research some others, and I'll show you what a block hook is as well. And I get these things from either Blick's or Jerry's. We're going to talk about transferring your image because some blocks are or some images, if they're not symmetrical, that's going to be a problem because you print in reverse. So we're going to go over the process for tracing your image a couple of times and transferring a reverse image on your block. Some things to keep in mind when we're carving: you always want to keep your hands behind the blade. It's really sharp, and if you slip, you can jab it into your finger or your palm, and that hurts a lot. So you're always going to put your free hand behind the blade. You don't have to jab downwards. You don't have to carve too deeply. Just nice, easy. You really want to just glide right across the block as you're carving your lines out. And if the block is too stiff, it's not going to be a problem with these pink speedball ones, but the gray ones that I use, they're kind of stiff, and they can give you it's even caused me, before I knew this trick about heating it with a hair dryer, I was putting so much effort into carving that I was hurting my neck. So then I found out, oh, I just need to soften the block, and it's a lot easier. And then we'll go over the different blades as well, and different ways of adding color. Of course, black and white is just fine, but if you want some splashes of color, you can separate your block into two or more and color them separately and then put them together like a puzzle before you press. You can roll multiple colors together, create gradient effects, or reduction, which is what I was talking about earlier, carving, inking one color, then carving some more, putting another color on top of it until you're done. And if you make any lino cuts of your own, I'd love to see them. So you can send it to me directly. You can tag me, tag Making Midwest too. And that's it for the slides. And I'll share these with you later. Right now, I will start. Hang on. Okay. Now we're back. Can everybody see me okay? Okay. I think I'm back now. All right. Let's go over those supplies one more time. So I'm going to start by showing you the cutter. This speedball one is really nice because you can store all your blades inside. So if you have this with you, go ahead and open up the back, dump out your blades, and they come in different sizes. And so I'll show you what they do. So there's one has a number 5 on it, and that's it's called a U gouge because I don't know how well you can see this, but it's more U-shaped, whereas others are V-shaped, and that's good for carving away large sections. So the number 5 is right here. If you want to, say you're doing scenery, you want to carve out the background, or you just want a large pieces of white where the paper shows through, you'll use that, and it won't produce as many of the lines on the paper later. There's also number 3, which is a V gouge. That's a little bit smaller than that, and then they keep going down. So there's a 2. I use this one a lot because it's not super fine detailed, but it's fine enough. And then if I want to go even finer, I can use a number 1, and that one is right here. So if you want to do really thin lines, and then if you want to do really fine detail, we've got this 6 blade right here, which is kind of teardrop shaped. And there are different ways to use it. You can, if you hold your cutter, I'll show you how to put these in a second, but if you hold your cutter like a pen and you can just like almost draw them, then you can get really thin lines here. Or what I did here is take the circular end of the blade and just drag it along the block. And what you'll get is kind of a texture effect. So I did one print that was a German Shepherd, and I was trying to make it look a little more realistic. So when I was done, I just took this and just dragged it in a few spots just to create some highlights, some texture, a little more realism without having to gouge it and do the lino cut look. Let me show you how to put these in. So at the top, don't unscrew it all the way, but just loosen it up, and you can see on the inside of the cutter, it's almost like there's a ball with 2 metal layers on either side of it. So you're going to slide this in between that ball and the thinner of the 2 metal layers. Just the non-blade side, just slide it in and tighten it up. And then when you're carving, let me bring it down. Again, you're going to put your free hand behind the blade at all times. Never put it up here, especially with these gray ones, because you could slip. So put your free hand behind, and then there's different ways of holding it depending on the blade. For the speedball ones, it's best to this kind of rests in your palm. Press one finger down where it connects, and just aim down a little bit, and then push forward. Doesn't take a ton of pressure. let me show you two different types of blocks. Like I was saying before, we've got the speedy carve. I'm going to use this one tonight because you can carve it really quickly. And this other one, this is the Blick Battleship Gray. Here's a full block. This is what I tend to use when I use make larger images. Um, this is the one that's a little more stiff. So I suggest heating it up with a hair dryer before you start. It's not too bad right now, but over time, like I said, you're putting in that extra effort and digging, and it's just going to go through your arm. It's going to hurt your neck. So definitely heat it up first. Okay. The next object I'm going to show is the block hook. Here it is. So this thing, it's optional, but it helps a lot. So if you're getting into lino cut, definitely suggest this. It's not quite as necessary with this speedy carve, but with something a little heavier, stiffer, you just put one end on your table and one in here, and it kind of almost holds it for you. So you don't have to quite do all the work with your free hand holding it. And as you push, it's just providing that stability for you. So I recommend using a block hook if you're doing a lot of lino cut. Another important supply is your brayer. This is going to roll your ink on. And you can, as long as you have any smooth surface, you put a blob of ink on it. And I'll show you this later when we ink up the block. But all you have to do is just roll till you have it nice and smooth. It's going to make this almost like a hissing sound. That's what you're going to listen for. That's going to tell you when you're ready to apply it to your block after you've carved. And then you put your paper on it. And this is a Baron that I mentioned earlier, where you just grab the handle and you roll it over your paper, and you don't have to press too hard, just some even pressure all around, and then you lift your paper and you've transferred the image. But like I said, you don't need a Baron. You can use a spoon, or if you have a printing press, of course, you can use that as well. The inks that I use, I've got a jar of black here. We're going to use some red. Um, there are all different kind of colors, but I think the kit that I recommended came with some primary colors, so you can mix those and create whatever you want. And I think that's it for supplies right now. Are there any questions before we start? Let's see. I think there's something in the chat. Okay, I'll leave the chat open. So if anybody has supplies, has questions about supplies or anything else, go ahead and ask. Now let's go over transferring the image to your block. So like I mentioned, when you press the paper and pull it off, you're going to end up with a reverse of whatever you carved, which is fine if your design is symmetrical. But if it's not, especially if you're using letters, words, those have to go onto the block backwards so you can print them properly onto the paper. And I'm not good at writing backwards, so I have a trick for that so I don't mess anything up. Let's get to the design that we're going to work on tonight. So I just sketched out the little guy in my field notes here, and then I traced it with a pen. So that's the first step if you're going to do something that's not symmetrical. Just trace your design with tracing paper and make sure you're using pen. And then you're going to grab a pencil and scribble over the pen everywhere that you have your design, just put pencil all over it. And so you can feel free to do this if you're working along with the video. Okay. Next, take the block, and then you put the tracing paper pencil side down. So all the scribblings are on the block itself. And you take your pencil and just retrace it. Okay, so now you're tracing, you can see the pen through your tracing paper, and what you're doing is just pressing that scribbled pencil onto the block. Now, I will say with the speedy carve, one drawback is when you do this, it could get a little sloppy. It doesn't show as clearly as it does with the Blix one, but it's fine if your design is fairly simple and you're just looking for the basic shape of it, because you can always trace it one more time onto your block, or just fill in if anything is missing or a little smudged. Another thing you can do is you can draw directly onto the block. If you have things that are backwards, what I usually do when if I'm making, say, a landscape, I'll just save the picture on my phone or on my laptop, and I'll reverse the image and then draw directly onto the block. So save yourself, especially for something really detailed, you want to save yourself that step of having to trace and retrace to do the transfer. If you can just draw backwards directly, that's going to help. But for times when you can't, it's good to do this. Okay, so peel it off. Forgot the guy's mouth, so I'll just put it back. Add that. There we go. Now we've got a happy little leaf, as Bob Ross would say. And it's pretty good. Everything's pretty clear. If there's anything that's not really clear, you can just draw directly on the block. So the next thing I'm going to do is start carving. What I like to do is start with a fairly small blade and work your way up. I save the number 5, the U gouge. I usually save that for the end and carve away any background that I don't want. I'm going to start with a number 2 on this because we don't really have a lot of fine details. And while we're doing this, I'm going to go over the way I put 2 colors on. So I use the reduction process, which means before I get the black eyes and mouth on, all I did was press the red leaf. So for reduction, you want to start by first keep in mind that it's a destructive process, meaning once you carve extra layers, you can't go back. Okay, so that's a good thing to keep in mind if you're going to sell prints. You have to figure out how many are going to be in your edition, because you can't make more. A reduction print is always going to be a limited edition, just by the nature of the process. So you start with the lightest color first. If I were going to use something like yellow or a light blue, those would be going on before any of these. You go light to dark, and you find the largest area that you're going to keep first. So the first thing we're going to do is just carve the leaf out. Okay, So again, I'm got loose hand behind the blade. I've got my number 2 blade here. I just jab it in a little bit and gently push along the lines. And you generally want to be pushing away from you. This one went a little sideways. Speedy carve is a good one for moving while you're carving. So what I tried to do on this one is make sharp points, but the insides are a little curved. So I'll move down and just move the block and then move up to the point and pull it up a little bit. When you're finished with a line, it's just a gentle little pull. And I'm going to go all the way around. And if you're working along at home, don't feel like you have to do this design. If you have, I would say, if you have a design of your own, go ahead and put that on the block, or you can just use some simple shapes just to get a feel for this. Put some circles, triangles, or make a pattern, whatever, just to get a feel for how the block carves. And you can make changes as you're going too. For example, I made one of these points really thin, so I just thickened it up as I'm going. That's a good thing about using that tracing process. There are multiple steps where you can make changes if you have to. Okay, I'm leaving the face alone for now. Um, Next thing I'm going to do is just open this up a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit more space here. Okay. Um, just so you can see how the number 5 looks, I'm going to switch my blade. And you can see what a big difference that makes. Um, Normally, and I'm using the number 5 right now on this area just to kind of speed it up, but normally I'll maybe do another outline with the number 2 and then do a number 3 for a little bit and then go to the 5 because I like leaving those lino cut lines on. So you can see in the final print, um, you've got these lines here, and sometimes I'll clean them up a little bit, but I usually leave some. I try not to get an entirely uh, blank background just because I like the way it looks, but that's totally a personal preference. If you would rather keep totally clean background, that's cool too. Okay, I'm going to go back to the number 2 right now and take care of the legs. We're not going to print them in the first printing, but I definitely want them at least outlined. Okay. So in the final, I want my legs white and the boots to be black. So I'm gonna carve away insides of the legs. And hope I don't carve away too much. I think I may have gone a little too far with that one, but that's okay. I'm gonna go a little bit more on the outside. I'll just thicken up his leg a little bit and we'll see what happens. Okay, and little lines on the boots. Let's see, we got a question here. Emily says, with the Blick Battleship Gray linoleum, does heating it up help with broken edges when carving? Mine tends to chip in the fine detail areas. Okay. Um, let's see if I'm reading this correctly. Um, yeah, what I would say is when you're heating it up, um, if you're going to heat up something like this, don't do any really fine details right after you heat it up. Give it a little bit of time to cool. Because I found that there are a lot of broken edges with especially with the number one blade. It's a little harder to work with when it's hot. So, yeah, I would say try not heating it up for those fine details, but even if you do heat it, just give it a little bit of time to cool off. Hope that answers the question. All right. Okay. All right. Now I'm gonna go back to the 5, get rid of all the background on this, and then we'll get into printing. And just for the sake of speed and awkward silence, I might not get rid of everything on here, but just to give you the idea of how it goes, I'll get rid of as much background as I can. Um,
Hey Matt, do you ever have to sharpen the blades?
yeah. Um, honestly, I have not really had to sharpen these. They've been pretty good, and I actually had some extras of the ones that I use most frequently. So I haven't really sharpened these, but they're probably due. And you can buy let me see if I'm getting the word right. What does he call it? A sharp or something like that. Um, I'll have to look that up and I'll add it to the PDF before I send it out. But yeah, it is a good idea to sharpen them once in a while. I mean, you can replace them, but and they're cheap, but why not? I think it's more of the some of the other cutter brands like Flex Cut, those will come with a sharpener, and that's because That's a little different. They sell individual handles. So the speedball one handle, and you get a pack of blades with it. Whereas the other ones will have, um, you get a one blade, a two blade, three blade, so on. So you don't want to replace those all the time. They're more expensive. But yeah, I haven't found that I've really needed to sharpen them that much. These are pretty sturdy. Okay. All right. Almost done here. And again, how much of the block you want to leave is up to you. Usually I'll carve away the edges as well, but if you feel like leaving some border and putting color on that, that's totally fine. All right. Okay. So now we've got the leaf carved away. We've got the legs, all the background away from that. We're going to get to inking now. So I have just some plastic pieces right here. They're actually used for certain kinds of monotype printmaking, but they work really well for this. But any smooth surface that you are able to clean up easily is fine. And I've got another one here because since we're going to do reduction by printing two colors on here, I made some registration marks on this one. So it's a good idea to, with reduction, it is definitely very important, especially if it's more detailed, to put some marks on your press or whatever, just so you line it up. Maybe some of you are familiar with screen printing, so you know all about registration. I'm going to take my ink. A little bit on. It doesn't take a lot of ink to cover one block. And then the brayer. So just roll it out till you get a nice smooth area that covers the whole thing. Kind of lift it up a little bit and then just roll different directions. And when it's nice and smooth, you probably can't hear it on the video, but you do get this nice little hissing sound. That's how you know you're ready. So just roll it over the area. Brush away some little artifacts there. Roll it over the area you're going to apply ink to. And this is the kind of print I probably use the 2-block method and just cut this thing in half and have one red, one black, but I just wanted to show you the reduction process. So we're going to just put ink a little bit got on the legs. That's fine because we're going to put black over it, so hopefully it'll mostly be concealed. But I've got the leaf covered. By the way, brayer, cool thing about these, you have this bar right here, so you can put it down on your table or wherever like this and not get ink on your desktop or whatever you're using. Okay, line it up with the registration marks. I'm going to put a piece of paper on top of it. And I'm going to take my Baron. You can take a spoon. Another question. Once you roll on ink, can you make edits to the block? Yes, you can. In fact, normally you would do a test print. Just take a plain, cheap piece of paper and um, put it on the block, press it, see how it looks. If you don't like it, or if there's something that's sometimes you miss some pieces and there's a little too much, carve away, and you can make edits as many times as you want. um, Great thing about printmaking like this is you can do as many as you want. If it's one color, you can easily do one over and over again. Like I said before, reduction print is going to be limited because it's destructive. You are essentially destroying the block by the end of it. So that's going to be limited, but otherwise, you can make multiples and you can put ink on as many times as you want, carve stuff away if you don't like it. So let's roll, see how it looks. Again, I'm just doing this nice and easy, going up and down, circles. I don't have to press too hard. Just try to get even until you feel you've pressed every piece of the image. Grab a corner, peel it up. I don't think I put enough ink on this one because it came out really light. So I'm going to try that again. I'm going to put, and there is a lot of trial and error with printmaking. Sometimes you go through a lot of paper until you get it right. But I found that if you're doing an edition with a whole bunch of them, and you get into that groove, uh, one after the other, you don't get too many mistakes. Okay, I can already see one area where I need to carve away. Um, I missed a big chunk right here in the middle between the legs, so I'm going to get that out. There, it's gone. And this little guy. Okay, a little more ink. And with rolling, try to get just a nice, even coat on it. All right, we'll grab another piece of paper. Put it on. All right, I'm going to stand up for this one. Try to see if that was the problem too. Maybe I need a little more pressure. There we go. That's better. Okay, so we got a leaf. Got some of the legs showed up, but again, that's fine because we're going to press a black layer over that. So do as many of those as you want. Let's say if that was all you were going to do, if it was just going to be the leaf, then you're fine. If you were going to sell them, it could be an open edition if you want, meaning when it runs out, you print some more and you can sell some more. I mean, you can do limited editions too if you want, where you're numbering at the bottom of the print, where you sign, and you can put, 1 of 10, 1 of 12, whatever. If this is a reduction print, you're going to figure out how many are going to be in the edition ahead of time. So if we were going to make an edition of 20, do 20 of these. Maybe you do a few pages extra just in case the next layer, something messes up and you want that little cushioning. But so you make as many of your first layers you want. because once you're done with that and you start carving the block again, you're done. Okay, and then we go back and we're going to carve away anything that's going to stay red. So the same concept as you carve away anything where you want the paper to show through. Well, now you're carving away anything that's going to stay red. So in this case, it's most of the leaf, but we'd be carving around the eyes and the mouth. And we've already carved down here, so that will get a layer of black. And if we wanted to take off anything extra on the sides, we can do that too. But just so you don't have to watch me recarve even more, I'm just going to use the one I used in the sample. Already have this guy ready to go. The leaf is carved away. All that's left, the face and the legs. Okay, so that's going to be our layer of black. And let me get another brayer. Okay, brayers come in different sizes too. Some of them can be small like this if you need smaller areas covered. You can get huge ones that are almost like rolling pins. There's even I've seen some massive lino cuts. There's an organization, I think it's called Big Ink Press, something like that. They specialize in prints that are so huge that they lay them on the ground and press them with steam rollers. It's really impressive sight. All right, so this is in a jar. I'm just going to spread some on that plastic sheet right here. And again, roll doesn't have to be too thick. I actually probably put too much ink right there. So I'm just going to pull some of it into other spots where I can roll a lighter, more even coat. Okay, once I think I've got it completely covered, I'm going to go back to the block, cover the face, cover the legs. If I wanted, I can go over the whole thing and that'll have some of those black lino cut lines showing through. I don't know if we really want too many of them on there, so I'll just do this and whatever appears naturally is fine. All right, I'm gonna line it back up with those registration marks, grab the red leaf, and let's see if I got it lined up correctly since I'm using two different blocks. But put that on top, same process, press it. For hand pressing, it's kind of hard. You have to just make sure you're holding the paper. Usually doesn't slip too much, but you do need to put a hand on it just in case. And then grab a corner, pull it up. Let's see what happened. Okay, so the registration was a little off, but that's the basics of it. We put the darker layer on top of the lighter layer, and that's the reduction cut. And then if you were doing a lot more, you just keep grabbing the ones you've already printed with the new block and keep pressing on top of that. So that's our sample. Does anybody have any questions right now? Or does anybody, are we able to turn on videos and see if anybody's working along and we can, if anybody wants to share what they're doing so far?
I'll ask a question. Um,
Yeah, sure.
how does this differ from your design work? Like you said, it's kind of like a respite for you to get away.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I like design, but for one, you don't have to stare at a computer, so that's pretty nice. If you're just your eyes are tired after all day. Thank you. Um, Also, you don't have to worry so much. Nice, I like that. Um, You don't have to worry so much about perfection. With a lot of these, imperfections are fine. You have some extra lines showing up here and there. It's all right. It's a little more forgiving. It's more art than because design is part business, and you got to make sure everything gets right. Every little pixel is in the right place. With Lino Cut, you're a little more free to take that artistic license and not worry about perfection so much. And I just do very different things. Although I will say, um, for those of you who are designers, um, some of the decisions you make when you're doing Lino Cut will come from your experience with design. So there's a lot of overlap between the two styles too. You make design-based decisions sometimes, and sometimes you might just feel like throwing them out the window, and that's cool too. Got some questions in the chat. What are the disadvantages of using the speedy cut instead of the lino? It's definitely easier to use, so I'm wondering if longevity is very different for lino versus speedy cut. Yes, it is, Sarah. Um, if you're planning on keeping your blocks for a long time, they do degrade over time. I mean, I haven't really been doing it long enough to notice any degradation, but it's after several years is what it takes. The blocks do start to break down a little bit, and you're not. You eventually get to a point where you're not able to use them. So the sturdier blocks are going to stay that way longer. So I feel, and again, this isn't from my personal experience because I haven't had them long enough, but I've heard that these speedy cuts will break down a little sooner than that. So if that's an issue for you, then you might want to go with something more like the Battleship Gray, like I use, or um, other sturdier ones. Also, I should mention some blocks do come mounted to wood, and those can be easier to work with. The reason I don't use them is because I have a press at home, and if I have these blocks, which are very thin, if they're mounted on wood, which tends to be thick like that, I can barely get it through my press. So, yes, I could hand press them, but I find that for what I'm doing, I get an easier, more even press through my hand crank press. And so I need to get it through that. So I don't use the mounted ones, but you may want to try it because it may just be easier to work with, not slip out of your hands. Heather says, I know you talked about ink for t-shirts, but I missed some of it. Can you use water-based ink for clothing, or is oil preferred? Yeah, you're going to want to use oil-based inks for t-shirts because the water-based ones will wash out immediately. Um, if you're going to use, if you're going to print on t-shirts, the one I suggest is Gamblin. If it's just going to be a black and white shirt or black on some other light color, Gamblin Drive By Black is my favorite for that. It's really rich color and it lasts pretty well. Uh, if if you make a T-shirt, what you're going to want to do after you let the ink dry after you press it, and you're really going to want to let it dry um, for about 2 weeks, and you want to heat set it too. So usually just if you put it in the dryer, just put it in there by itself, inside out, let it dry. That'll usually help it set, and then you're good to wear it for a while. It doesn't last forever, but it's okay. Does fabric screen print ink work with the lino? I haven't tried screen print ink, but it's possible if it's specifically for fabrics. Um, I don't know. I can ask some people I know if they've ever done that before and get back to you on that. Um, I don't know about that one. I just generally I've avoided the screen printings because they say screen print, and figure I should probably stick with stuff that says relief print. That's the general term for lino cut, wood cut, anything where you're eliminating a piece of it and then raising something else to put the ink on. That's relief. So that's what the ink would be called. Okay. Tina says she has a ton of it, so Tina's going to try it out, and maybe she'll get back to us with some answers. Thanks. Does anybody want to turn their video on and show us what you've been working on? Tina had one, and I got a quick glimpse of it. But if you want to show us a little bit more, okay. There's Emily, and oh, cool. Oh, yeah, very nice, very nice. Okay, all right, yeah. Not sure. Whoa, that was cool. So, and okay, cool. We got a pennant from Tina. Excellent. That's good stuff. And that's yeah, something like the pennant, that would be a good one if you wanted to add another color on top of it. If you wanted to get another block, small block, write something, use that tracing process to write your letters backwards and then put it on a different block and put it on top. There are all kinds of directions you can go with Final Cut. Cool. Are there any other questions? And if anybody has questions later on that come up after we close out here, feel free to contact me anytime. I'll send everybody the PDF of the slides afterwards, so you have a little bit of reference there. Oh, do you need to clean the brayer after each use? Yes. Yeah, clean everything after each use, I would say. I mean, yeah, you can get away with not doing that, but I think it's just better to clean everything. Like I said, if you're using water-soluble inks, you can clean it in your bathroom sink just fine. A baby wipe is fine too. You can just wipe everything down with one of those and not even have to deal with that, but you can just wash stuff off, run water on it. Yeah, clean the brayer, clean the block, especially if you're going to use different colors. Let's see. Anything else? Okay. And again, like I was saying, if you have any other questions, Matt Reno Art is my Instagram. MattReno.com is there's our contact form on there. You can email me anytime. I'm always happy to answer questions. And like I said, I would love to see your work. So those of you who made prints tonight, feel free to take a picture and send it to me, or if you make something later, send it to me anytime. That would be cool. So I guess we're good to wrap up right now, unless there are any last minute questions. Don't say anything.
Okay, well, I'll do
Okay.
a
Well,
awkward.
thank you everyone for attending.
I'll do
What's
an
that?
awkward silence. I'll do awkward silence for like the next 15 seconds to see if anybody else has a question, and then we can wrap up here. Does anybody else have a question? 15 seconds is a long time. I just wanted to see how long.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
um,
Just some background music. All right. Thank you, Heather.
well, thank you, Matt. Thank you for showing us some lino art or lino print
Yeah.
making. This is recorded, so
Yeah.
everyone,
Thank you, Charles.
you will get a, you're welcome. This is recorded, so everyone will get a recorded recording sent to them after this is finished. But thank you, everyone, and I think we're going to sign off.
Good night.